What is the effective range adjustment factor, or ERAF? Under the old rule, if your independent variable values fell outside of your effective range of either of your models, you'd need to exclude those energy savings from your model and wouldn't be able to claim SQs for them. The effective range adjustment factor allows you to include those energy savings, but instead discounts them based on how far outside of your effective range the independent variable value is. So, for example, let's say this is your model, with the x-axis being your independent variable, your temperature measurements, and the y-axis being the energy savings that your model predicts. Your model's effective range might look like this. Under the previous rule, you'd only be eligible to claim these savings. So savings where your temperature fell between these particular points. And you couldn't use time periods where your temperature was above 30 degrees or below 12 degrees. With the effective range adjustment factor, you now get to include a discounted set of savings at either end of your effective range, but at a discount and proportionate to how far outside of the effective range that the independent variable is measured at. So this is the equation that you use to calculate ERAF. It's located in equations 7a.2 and 7a.4. The POER in this particular case, in that second line, it refers to the percentage outside effective range. And it's a value that reflects how far outside of the range the independent variable is, but it's proportionate to the size of the effective range itself, so the magnitude of the effective range. Whenever you have an independent variable that falls outside of an effective range for any time period, you need to calculate the POER for each of your independent variables and for each of your models. If you've got two independent variables that fall outside of their respective effective ranges, or if you've got different POER values for each model, what you need to do is you need to use the largest POER when you calculate that ERAF value for each time period. So as an example, we'll calculate an ERAF value for this model. You'll see the assumptions that we've got an effective range. We've got a baseline model effective range that is slightly larger than the operating model's effective range. It goes down to 10 degrees instead of 12. And let's say you've got your independent variable value for a particular time period being 35 degrees. So it falls above the top end of both of those models. You'd start by calculating the POER based on each of those models. So using the equations from the last page, we put them into this equation in dot points 2 and 3. And we can see that the POER for the operating model is larger. So that's the value that we use when we're calculating what our ERAF value is. And we get an ERAF of 0.55. Next, we're going to apply that ERAF value to our energy savings. Let's say that the difference between our modeled baseline and operating energy consumption is 40 megawatts. That's that assumption in that top left corner there. And we assume that our interactive energy effect is 0. When we put these into equation 7a.2, which is our forward creation equation, what happens is we discount those 40 megawatt hours of savings that we get using the ERAF value of 0.55, which gives us 22 megawatt hours. So with that adjustment, you lose 18 megawatt hours. By comparison, under the old rule, you'd lose all 40 of those megawatt hours since the independent variable falls outside the effective range. So the ERAF, it's a vast improvement. And the ERAF is also included in the short energy model method. And in that method, you're likely to have a smaller effective range. So that ERAF addition there is going to help you to minimize the loss of your savings.